Hello! Right. I need to do this. I need to make this video. It's probably going to cause a lot of negative feedback. It's probably going to make people get annoyed with me, I guess, because I'm expressing something about Blizzard, their game mechanic, and whatever, because there's a lot of people out there that will actively defend nonsense. And I'll tell you this much. As the title implies, I cannot figure out why knockback exists in this game. I've tried to look at it from a build perspective, from a play perspective, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why it exists in this game. I will say, these fucking walls, it makes... Don't these walls kind of make mounts also useless? But let's not get into that. I would say that knockback has had the biggest impact on my playstyle as playing with Nature's Fury, all about you know, triggering cooldowns and spams and trying to get your abilities up for as long as you could possibly get them up. Right, do I go up or down? Down. But everything that the Druid does, everything, is all knockback. And I thought that the recent addition of an Earth Trample would actually make this more fun. I will say that knockback has been the most frustrating thing that I've come across in a video game. Because almost everything that the Druid does has some form of knockback. And it's making my damage worse. Trample knocks them outwards in all directions, making Hurricane worse, making Cyclone Armor that does like a sort of explosion attack. These things, they miss so much damage because things like Trample have knocked them away. But it's not as bad as what Boulder did. Boulder just removed them from my screen. So Boulder would trigger and it would re-trigger because of the Nature's Fury effect of free triggers. So I'm casting Boulder, the free trigger is also casting, and then the cooldown because of what the fuck's it called? Nature's Fury, Keystone, passive triggers, blah, 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 you get the cooldown. So it's now spamming the effect. And Boulder was going off so rapidly that the enemies, all of the enemies, were being pushed away from me. I couldn't keep up. I couldn't do any damage. And I noted that Boulder was making it 10 times worse for friends, people on world events, random people that joined me. I was actually making their damage worse because I was knocking them out of the AoE effects. And because of this, I stopped myself from using Boulder. Now, I don't think a game should ever be encouraging you to not use an ability. And I personally think knockback is the single-handedly most crappiest addition in this game. That I personally think that it just would be better if it was just removed. Just remove it from the game. Remove knockback. Because I've been trying to figure out its actual function as a usage in this game. Taking aside the fact that I've only been playing Nature's Fury, I haven't got another build that would utilize knockback. I've tried to understand how knockback could be used and utilized in world events and stuff like that, in dungeon content, if I was playing with friends. How knockback would actually be, you know, usable. There's a lot of enemies in the game that can apply crowd control effects. And these crowd control effects are beaten by unstoppable. And it's a well-known fact at this point that druids can just get infinite unstoppable from different things. Not just from Earth and Bulwark, but you could get infinite unstoppable. And the fact that you can get infinite unstoppable means that the crowd control issue of the game, where you needing to knock them away from you or something like that, becomes irrelevant. So I couldn't even, knowing that unstoppable exists in this game, I couldn't even convince myself that knockback is necessary for crowd control. I cannot figure out what knockback is supposed to be used for. It makes my damage worse. It makes friends' damage worse. It makes the game feel worse. It doesn't bring anything to the table. It's a useless function. And it's non-rewarding. Like, if you're ever in a situation where you don't want to use an ability because it makes your damage worse, then that ability needs to be reassessed. Right? As far as I'm concerned, Boulder needs to be reworked in some capacity. It's so stupid, right? I don't understand its form, its function of making an enemy disappear off your screen. It's like a magic trick. You go and voila! The enemy has gone! Like, yeah, but I haven't killed it, so it's just gonna come back. Yeah, but it's fun, right? No, it's not fun. And I'll say this. I personally think that Blizzard didn't test knockback. They added it into the game, but they didn't test it under any circumstance. I honestly think that knockback is the most undefendable utilized thing in the game. It's so abysmally shit that it offers nothing to the game, and the game would be better if it was removed. I could give a prime example of just how stupid knockback is. Trample. I want you to understand something. When you think of the word trample, what do you think? Just take a moment. Just listen to the word out loud. Trample. 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 Knock them back. No. What you think is knock to the ground and trample them into the dirt. Right? That is the definition of trample. To be knocked down. Not knocked away. Knocked down. So I looked at this. I was like, okay, the knockback ability. You knock them back away from you. The pillars, when they come up, appear behind you. So you've charged into the enemy, you've knocked the enemy forward, away from the AO. Did Blizzard actually test knockback? I don't think they did. I think it's the most crappiest function of Druid. And I honestly think that Druid would actually feel better as a class if they just removed knockback completely. Like, not weaken it or make it worse, I mean remove it from the game. To have no knockback functionality whatsoever. I'm enjoying the game. I think that the game is fantastic. I've only played Nature's Fury, obviously. But I can look past the knockback. But what I can't look past is the fact that I can't use Boulder. And even a small function of trample makes me not want to use trample. The enemy desynced then, which is why it took no damage. You could see my character twitching as I moved away from the enemy. Nice. Desyncing exists in this game. But at the same time, like, it makes my damage worse because of things like Cyclone and Hurricane. Trample's not doing its damage because it's knocking the enemy away. Boulder, I really, really want to use Boulder because I think it's funny to hit people in the face with a giant round object, right? I think that's funny. But what I can't tolerate is when I use it in a spam fashion, all the enemies don't die and they disappear from my screen. Like, there's not that many Earth abilities that you can use. Like, Hurricane is always going to trigger Boulder. It now has the ability of triggering Trample, which is nice because it's classed as an Earth ability. And you'll even see that. You'll see multiple Tramples triggering sometimes if the Boulder doesn't come out. But at the same time, like, knocking enemies away, like, what am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do with that as a thing? To the point that the knockback has become so noticeable as a detriment to this build that I'm actually looking forward to playing Companion, because Companion doesn't have any knockback form at all. That I actually might get more fun and enjoyment out of playing Druid if I don't play Nature's Fury. That to me is hilarious. Not only has Nature's Fury shut down Boulder, it shut down Nature's Fury. It's made Nature's Fury worse. That's how bad knockback is. It's affected an ability and an ability passive. Like, I'm trying to get my head around it. I'm trying to understand why Blizzard put it in the game to begin with. And I don't think there's a sensible reason. Now, on other characters, knockback might have some usage. I've not seen that usage. I've watched necromancers play, I've watched sorcerers play, I've even watched barbs play. And not a single one of them would benefit from knockback. None of them. And yet it's worse on Druid because all of Druid abilities seem to be knockback, knockback, knockback. Now, does that mean that Nature's Fury is shit? No. I mean, you could clearly tell. I've turned the damage numbers off, but you could clearly tell I'm doing a lot of pack clears. I'm doing a lot of damage overall. I'm sustaining myself. My build is actually working. I'm not struggling. I'm not hitting any roadblocks. Like, I'm still getting some fun factor out of this. But the constant active frustration of knockback is making me look forward to no longer playing this build. I shouldn't be saying that out loud. I shouldn't be saying that. I shouldn't be saying that a build is made bad because of one effect. Knockback is an effect. If I could turn off the knockback, it wouldn't be an issue. Like, for instance, if there was a third node here, anything that can do knockback. If there was a node that said removes the knockback of Boulder, but increases its damage or something by 20% or something. Just something, pretty basic. But it removes the knockback. Now, obviously, you're giving up the other passives to be able to remove that knockback, but I think that would start to balance itself out. Right? So you lose the crit by getting the third node, but you gain the non-knockback. I would love that. I would love to be able to spam Boulder. But I can't. I literally can't. This one skill is single-handedly, because of knockback, the shittest ability in the game. Hands down. I don't think in any other class, and this is the thing that at the start I was expecting a lot of people to now give me some comments back, basically telling me that I'm wrong, that they're their abilities are 10 times worse. But I don't think they stand toe-to-toe against the horrendous knockback that this does. Firstly, its damage is low, but it needs to be because it's spammable. The cooldown on this is really short. The developers clearly want you to spam Boulder. They want you to spam Boulder. But if you do, you make your play as well as your friends' play, their damage over time, their effects, their abilities, you make them worse. Why does that exist? Another little thing here as well, making sure that that you know it removes the knockback feature. I think that's actually tied into the actual skill itself, isn't it? What is it on? It's on this. Now summons landslide pillars. No, this doesn't do the knockback. The actual move itself does the knockback. Was any of this tested? I don't think it was. I don't think it was. I'm looking forward to playing the companion build because I'm sick and tired of using abilities that push enemies away from me and it shuts down a portion of my damage. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, don't use Cyclone Armor. Don't use it. I have to. That's how the Nature's Fury key passive works. You spam abilities. That's the whole point. When you use a storm skill, there's a 20% chance of it casting an ability of that particular thing. So if I'm using Hurricane, I'm going to be using Hurricane. Its AoE is just pretty good. It affects the gameplay of the damage because it applies a slow, and in terms of this build and just earth damage in general, does more damage against enemies that are slowed or stunned. That you want to keep a slow effect up as often as you can. You want to be able to slow the opponents down, and Hurricane does that incredibly well. As long as it's active, you get that slow. I mean, it's right there, 25% slow for 2 seconds. As long as they're within the Hurricane, they are just permanently slowed by 25%, which increases the damage of Earth skills, right? Which, when I first read that with the Nature's Fury, I thought would work insanely well with Boulder. And it does. But what doesn't is the knockback. And I need to vent that. I need to vent that frustration. I need to let this video show that knockback, it just has to be removed. Like, it's non-defendable. I genuinely think that knockback needs to be reworked, changed, removed, or implemented differently, like a third node that allows me to remove the knockback aspect of Boulder. Nature's Fury would be better without it. Now, if I wasn't using Nature's Fury, is there a usage for Boulder? Yes. If you find that you are suddenly too crowded, you can use Boulder without refreshing its cooldown. Just use it on an enemy that's close to you. Push enemies away from you, and it makes a path so that you can get away. Knockback does have a function. But in terms of a useful function, outside of a once in a blue moon situation where you get overcrowded and you do need to knock enemies away, don't forget, a lot of enemies in this game are actually immune, especially all bosses, to knockback. Knockback doesn't work on them. So there's like maybe a 5% chance or lower that you will actually use the knockback for the knockback. I guarantee no one is. I guarantee not a single fucking person is using Boulder for its knockback. No one is. No fucking chance. I don't care what anyone says. You are not using this for the knockback. You're just not, right? I honestly think that Nature's Fury would be 10 times better if Druid just didn't have knockbacks. Even the Perfect Storm stuff would just be better if you wasn't knocking enemies away from you constantly. It would also serve better, I mean, even Earth and Might, right? Increasing your crit. If the target is stunned, immobilized, or knocked back, well, how am I supposed to chase them? If I've knocked them back, how am I supposed to chase them, right? Druid doesn't have a way of chasing those that have been knocked back. So this becomes almost useless because of the knockback. So knockback makes this worse, it makes this worse, it makes this worse. And if you're going to use shapeshifting, you don't really care to use knockback anyway, because I don't think the shapeshifters have knockback apart from Trample. I think Trample's the only one that has knockback. But that's just the thing. Like 50% of end game material is made useless. An ability is made useless. The self-triggering spam is made useless. The damage overall is made worse because enemies are no longer around me. I make the damage worse for other players that do AoE. Do you really seriously think a Flame War Sork wants to be anywhere near me if I'm spamming boulders? No. I can't. This is the thing, and I want people to comment below. I can't figure out, outside of that tiny fucking percentage where you might want to use knockback, I can't figure out why it's in the game. Why knockback is a thing. Stunning the enemies or doing immobilize has more of an effect than knocking them away. And the word trample is hilarious to me. Knockback. Surely trample would actually work better as a skill. If you was to use trample through the enemies, those enemies become immobilized for a few seconds, and during that effect, they take the damage from the AoE. Like, in its current usage, it's shit. And I now know I'm looping myself talking about this stuff, and I'm reiterating the same point over and over again. But it has to be said. I have to talk about this. I have to bring it up. I have to mention it. It's frustrating me. It is genuinely frustrating me. And when Hurricane triggers trample, though it is nice to get 2 tramples off at the same time, it's still knocking enemies away. I've had one situation where I had a trample into an enemy. That enemy then got bouldered, so they got knocked back from the trample and then bouldered, and that enemy fucking disappeared. I don't know where they went. They clearly didn't die, but they was pushed back so far that 2 abilities just made an enemy fucking disappear off screen. One of the thing that is also being brought up as well with this game is the camera. It's too close, and when you're on a horse, it pulls the camera out a bit, and that pulled out state actually feels more natural. I'm fully expecting Blizzard to change knockback at some point, because if they don't, I'm going to be more than happy to get rid of Nature's Fury as my mainstay character. I don't want to say that out loud, because I think that's revolting for me to look at a build and be so like put off from it because of one thing, knockback, that I'm getting so frustrated with it that it's actually taking me away from wanting to play that particular build. You should never, as a developer, make it so that builds feel so bad to play that it makes the players not want to play them. If players are experiencing something that is causing frustration, it needs to be looked into. Nature's Fury does not need to be looked into. Nature's Fury Keystone passive tied in with the aspect does not need to be looked into. The knockback needs to be looked into. That's the only thing that needs to be looked into. So I'm not sitting here saying that Nature's Fury is bad. It isn't. Nature's Fury is pretty good. You can still play this without using another, like if I was to like remove this off the hotbar, you can still play as Nature's Fury if you want to do this instead. Use like Ravens or something, where you don't have the knockbacks. But I think that takes you away from what the Nature's Fury Keystone is all about. The Nature's Fury Keystone clearly wants you to use both Storm and Earth abilities. Not fucking Ravens. Not a companion. Not Poison. Not fucking Werewolf or Werebear or whatever. They want you to use Earth and Storm abilities together. And I thought, when I got Trample, because I did enjoy seeing it in the previous video, that it would be pretty cool to now have another Earth ability. But this new Earth ability has got fucking knockback on it. And it's like I said, it's not as bad as Boulder. It is not as bad as Boulder. But it's still just as frustrating. And I think ultimately that's the reason why, when I've finished, you know, the rewards thing for each zone, that when I do make a new character, that it's highly unlikely, until knockback is fixed and made not shit, that it's highly unlikely that this character might never get played again. And that to me is horrendous design. It does the damage. Like, I'm clearly clearing out dungeons and everything at a pretty good pace. The damage is, you know, so noticeable that I don't need damage numbers on screen for me to be able to see that I'm doing the damage. But every time I use Trample, I have to then reposition myself to be able to do follow-up damage. Imagine if you're a sorcerer and you use an ability that, I think it's teleport. When you teleport, it sucks all the enemies in. That when you do that, it throws you in, it sucks all the enemies in, it then teleports you a screen away, that you're not able to put down the AoE effect, and you have to run back over before you can put down your AoE effects. Would that frustrate you? Yes, it would. Without question. But that's exactly what knockback is doing. You teleport in, all the enemies get pulled in, and then it puts you off screen somewhere. That's what the knockback feels like. And now that I've frustrated myself into making this video, I'm not going to bring it up again. You're not going to hear me talk about this in the future. This is a separate video that I'm keeping as separate. I'm not going to complain about it again, but it needs to be said. It needs to be said. It does. I'm looking forward to using Boulder in the future when Blizzard actually fix it in some capacity. But until then, when I get all of the additional stuff unlocked for all characters, I've done it all for the Lilith statues. I've done it for like 3 zones now where I've got all the additional stuff. I'm just doing it for the last 2 zones, I think. Let's have a look. So that's 100%, so the Paragon points, nearly 100%, that's Dry Steps. 100%, nearly, I'm in Kazakhstan currently, 100%. The moment I get all these at 100% is the moment I stop playing Nature's Fury. take a moment and try to understand what kind of an impact that has on build diversity. Just take a moment to understand that one effect, knockback, has had such an impact on the way that I would like to play this build that I can't. That it's actually pushing me into the arms of a separate build, completely different to this. Just let that fucking sink in for a sec. Just sit back and try and figure out, is that a sensible statement? I think it is. I think that if a build is frustrating you, you shouldn't continue to play that build. You should stay away from it. And I'm getting frustrated. And that's all I can say. Should you play Nature's Fury? Yeah, you can still play it. Just don't use any of the other Earth abilities. Just put Bulwark on there, get your cooldown reduction, get your Bulwark spam, and then your 6th ability, go for like a companion move or the werewolf to generate spirit. You can still do that. You can still like have the Bloodhowl generate free spirit so that you get your tornado spam or your landslide spam or whatever, your pulverize spam. It's a shame. It's a damn shame. Let me know what you think. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I exaggerating it? Probably from other builds, but I'm not exaggerating it for Druid with Nature's Fury. It is fucking horrendous. Knockback needs to be addressed. Simple as that. Take care. See you in the next video.